have a tendency to, so when I read a history book, I just go, huh, interesting. Wow, that's brutal. That's amazing. I can't believe they did that. But I've never read a history and been like, how could they do that to all those people? Those were kids. Those were whatever. Because I would lose my mind if that was my mentality going into any history book. I would feel horrible. I think history is just something you learn from and try to change and alter, and as you progress. But yeah, it always weirds me out when people get emotionally charged for stuff. I get it if there's an impact, but if it's just that's just a distant thing that happened.
Historians argue all the time, literally all the time, and I think where people get emotionally charged with history is when they feel as if there's an agenda attached to an interpretation of events. And there certainly is. I mean, people have agendas around history all the time. I mean, it's endless, and they fit one way or another. And I think we've all experienced two different agendas of the founding of America and colonialism and all that as either this, well, the Europeans were the ones who brought civilization to this, this godless, dark, pagan world that didn't have domesticated animals and didn't have technology and didn't have weapons, and thus, needed some civilization. Or this agenda is, well, this was a utopia, right, of people who were living off the land and worshiping the moon goddess and the sun god, and who knew how to live one with nature and didn't have all these chemicals in their food, and then we come over and we ruin everything. And it's like both are agenda driven, and both are not an accurate picture of reality whatsoever. It's too complex.
Yeah, I mean, heck, these days we'll watch the same news clip and you'll get 3 different versions of it, based on people's interpretations of it. And it's just like, can we really agree on anything? So like, look at history. You're talking about, things that have been lost, misinterpreted, translated, throughout years and years. So it's like, how can you even evaluate it emotionally? It's like, let's just go based on the facts and let's try to agree on those, if anything.
For me, a little bit of it has to do with like people seem like they're wired to operate on stories, right? Like everybody loves stories and they feel them deeply. And so TJ mentioned like, oh, I have this kind of matter-of-fact reading of history. But I think you get a lot of people who, even if they're reading a relatively factual recounting, they sort of like anthropomorphize the events and they like assign motive. So, touching on the, to circle it back, I guess, to the Native American genocide, there's at least a certain amount of people who view that as like this very deliberate, intentional, methodical event that transpired. And, and I'm not going to claim to be an expert. Maybe there was a portion of that, but as far as I can tell, it was largely incidental due to our own ignorance. Like the colonial people coming over weren't like, oh, we have this advanced understanding of germ theory of virology, and we're going to weaponize that against these people. They're just like, hey, man, like, I'm going to shake your hand and, without realizing it, murder most of your village later, like in 4 to 6 weeks, right? It's the damnedest thing. Like, we had like 20 of our people die on the way over. I don't know. It must have bad blood or something. But people have this,
Yeah.
Everything is so intentional, and sometimes people are just dumb and they do dumb stuff like introduce cats to cut down on the bird population, and then the cats eat all the birds, and then there's all these cats. So then they say, well, there's too many cats, let's get some snakes that eat cats and bring them in here to thin out the cat population. Before you know it, they've made a total hash of a ecosystem on an island somewhere, right?